There you go.
My name is Joseph, and who here has a phone? Just kind of a dumb question. And Stanley, how'd you charge your phone last night?
Huh?
How'd you charge your phone last night?
How do I charge it?
Yeah. Electricity, right?
Yeah.
So it's produced in a lot of ways, like nuclear energy, burning fossil fuels, wind turbines, and solar panels. And it's my claim that nuclear power plants are the key to sustainable clean energy, and I will support this claim by first pointing out that nuclear power generates more energy than its alternatives. It has a smaller environmental impact than coal-powered energy, and that nuclear energy is more efficient in terms of land and resources. Alright, my first claim is nuclear power generates more energy than its alternatives. So, according to the European Nuclear Society, coal generates around 8 kilowatts per hour per kilogram, and solar panels in California generate around 4,300 kilowatt hours per year, and wind turbines generate 3,300 kilowatt hours per year, and compared to nuclear energy, which is 24 million kilowatt hours per kilogram of uranium. So if you add all the coal, solar, and wind energy, it's not even a fraction of what nuclear power generates. My second point is that nuclear energy has a smaller environmental impact than the coal industry. Burning coal is notorious for its negative environmental impacts, and it releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And according to Mark Jacobson, professor of civil and environmental engineering at Stanford, greenhouse gas traps heat and leads to and has a correlation to global warming. So greenhouse gases act almost as like a blanket around the Earth that traps heat and creates and raises the temperature of the Earth overall. And the main form of coal mining is strip mining, which removes trees and topsoil to create those mines. And it basically destroys the environment, destroying habitats for endangered animals and other types of animal species. And coal is limited and it's running out. According to the CIA, coal in the US will run out by 2088, which is around 70 years from now, which is probably within our lifetimes. And my third point is that nuclear energy is more efficient in terms of land and resources. Japan relies on nuclear energy because of its lack of space and resources to burn fossil fuels and other alternatives. Burning coal requires large amounts of coal, which is not naturally found on the islands of Japan. And solar and wind generation require a lot of land to create, to capture the solar energy, and a lot of wind to spin the turbines, which Japan simply does not have. And nuclear energy is much cheaper than its alternatives. According to the Energy Information Administration, nuclear energy costs around 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Coal costs 4.1 cents per kilowatt hour, wind 4.3, and solar 7.7. So in conclusion, nuclear energy is the key to sustainable clean energy because it produces more, is less environmentally impactful, and is cheaper than its alternatives. Thank you very much.
Well, it seems like we've got a lot of people asking survey and rhetorical questions as their attention device. This is one of the things in my public speaking class I always try and discourage people from doing for the very reason that we have that. What do we have? 8 speeches so far tonight, and 6 of them has started off with a audience survey. That can be a little irritating after a while, so you might want to think of something a little bit more original than that. Your question also seemed a little bit odd because after asking about the phones, which you then said, well, that's kind of a stupid question anyway, you then proceeded to talk about something entirely different, which was the energy that's used to charge those phones, which seems like it would be maybe a better thing to be using for your attention device there. The controversy here, I think, is a little bit problematic. This is where I think you're missing the point. Nuclear energy is maybe economically comparable and maybe even superior to some of those sources that you cite. So the real question is, why isn't it being used? If this is such a bargain and it has all these advantages that you're talking about, then it would seem natural that people would have made that choice to go with nuclear energy. And in Japan, they seem to have done that. Why is it not happening here? That's, I think, one of those questions that part of your controversy. Why is it that we're having this situation? The layout of what the supporting structure is okay. The secondary claims are generally fine. I do think your information on a couple of these points is a little bit thin. You have one piece of information talking about the cost of kilowatt hour for the production. I'm not exactly sure that that's an appropriate way of making those comparisons because there's a lot of other stuff that goes in there, not just the uranium versus the coal, but the construction of the plants, for instance, and their operation and maintenance. That might alter the way that these numbers work out. You're just using one piece of information on the argument, and that might be a little bit thin. On the argument about the smallest environmental footprint of any of these sorts of things, you make a whole bunch of assertions about strip mining and about coal. I don't think anybody believes coal is really great for the environment. The risks to the environment are not particularly documented, and you suggest there's no talk about whatever risks there might be for nuclear production, and it seems to me like if you have to mine in order to get uranium, why is that different than mining for coal? There needs to be an explanation of that. There are also other environmental issues concerned with nuclear power plants that don't get discussed, and I think that that's a potential vulnerability because there's going to be counterclaims on that supporting point. On the issue of it being more useful or productive and economically desirable compared to these other sources, you had a lot of data about Japan, but I didn't hear source citations on any of that. And I did hear some estimate about what the cost was for kilowatt hour for all of these different kinds of energies. And that's, again, the thing that pops immediately into my head. Well, why is everybody so hot on solar if it's costing us 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour and and it's less than half that for nuclear power? Anybody who is economically inclined would see that the one thing is beneficial compared to the other. There's got to be some explanation, and it really feels like there's something that's been missing from this particular argument. You're rushing the presentation also. All right, thank you.